Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 13, Week 5 Power Rankings. This week was pretty explosive, I would say. A lot of big polarizing matches that I think bring things into a better picture, at least as far as our top 8 go. We'll see what that means in a moment. I am your host, IllLogic, coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant, and as always, I'm joined by SteveChuck, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
Hey, everybody.
Let's get on to the auction results here. No trades right now. There will be some coming up. Let's see what happened here. We're starting off with a bang, aren't we? The Route 1 Burbs are committed to the bit of a Sun team, so much so that they spend 27 Woot Bucks on the Slitherwing and getting rid of the Halucha to help make room. Nothing for the Mudkips. The Troopers with 2 nice bargain buys, 1 Woot Buck for Grimsnarl and 1 Woot Buck for Sandaconda, dropping the Hatterini and Phalanx. Steamrollers, Boulders, and the Electabuzz Town, they're all sitting out this time too. The Clobbers with a nice little revamp here, potentially just straight upgrade, dropping a couple fish and a mushroom for another mushroom, plus a couple others. Garchomp for 7, Talonflame for 9, and Amoonguss for 11, dropping tier 3, 4, and 4 mods to just get what looks like a straight upgrade to an already scary team. Watch out for those nice little moves there. Moving on to the Kinglers, who got their own nice little bargain pick. Toxapex for 1. That is so toxic. Look at their top 3 now. Zapdos, Landorus Theory, Toxapex. Ooh. Makes me shiver a little bit. Incineroar, Mimikyu for 24. We're going to have to talk about that one probably. We're dropping the Doxbun for that. The Noctowls, we're getting on that a little bit. Cinderace for 7 and Raichu for 1, replacing their electric type with Raichu and their fire type with Cinderace there, dropping Lecky and Pyroar. Aggron sat out, but I did not type that in incorrectly. Calgary Corviknights Iron Valiant for 40. That's a little bit. We're going to have to talk about that, of course. Bouffalant swapping out tier 5 poison types, grabbing the Sneasel Hisui for 1. And the Wobbuffets, of course, trading out normal psychic types, as one does, Indeedee for 7, and trading out the Weirder. Boy, there are some big numbers here, but also a shorter list than usual, Steve. What does that tell us about what happened here in Week 5's auction?
Yeah, as we're getting here closer to the end of the season, it seems people are, one, opening up their wallets a little bit more. These averages are the highest we've seen overall. This is the most spending. I mean, this is, of course, really helped out by, of course, the Iron Valiant for 40. But just a lot of these mons going for a lot. But the other side of that is a lot of mons just not being picked up. You talked about a shorter list than usual, and there's just not a lot of coaches are pretty satisfied with most of their team and are making minor upgrades instead of like early on when they were filling up everything. A ton of mons, of course, not getting picked up. The tier 2 Slowbro not going to anyone. At tier 3, Gyarados and Bisharp remaining free agents. At tier 4, Avalugg and Spiritomb and Hariyama not getting picked up. And at tier 5, most of them staying available with not available, but not picked up. Dunsparce, Murkrow, Misdreavus, Bronzor, Gogoat, and Glalie. All sorts of mons that weren't picked up. But yeah, the averages, as I said, highest they've been overall, 10.5 total. Mostly just propped up by the kind of big 3 of the auction. The Iron Valiant bringing up those tier 1s with 40. Of course, the other tier 1s going for respectable amounts. Cinderace at 7 and the Garchomp at 7. Those other tier 1s are still a little cheap, but reasonable, so I'm not too upset. The tier 2s, though, held up a lot by the Slitherwing at 27, but then the other tier 2s kind of going for, once again, those bargain prices. Toxapex for 1 is a steal. Really hope that's able to help out the Kinglers. And then the 3s helped by the Mimikyu going for 24. And, there are, of course, some bargains there as well. But in general, it seems people are opening up their wallets a little more, getting a lot more spending out of the way. And I hope to see this continue. And it can lead to some very fun situations. For example, the Incineroar ended up needing to go up to 24 to pick up Mimikyu. And that resulted in them having to drop something that they didn't plan on. They actually only had, I believe it was 23 Woot Bucks available at the time. So they had to drop their tier 4 Dash Bun in order to get enough funds to do the signing fee. So they were unable to, for the second time, drop their Wug Trio mascot. Wug Trio lives on, and may he reign forever.
Shout out to Wug Trio. These auctions have just been getting so interesting. It feels like there are just 1 or 2 select mons that people bid up a ton. Some it's pretty obvious. Iron Valiant, of course, it gets up, but maybe Q24. Wow, been fun for sure. Can't wait for someone to just unload their entire bank on a mon. Maybe one we're not even expecting. That'll be, ooh, crazy. That's the auction for week 5. Guess we can get into the matches. And wow. The Wobbuffets and the Noctowls. It's a high-profile match, and boy, do the Wobbuffets feel good about this one. A 4-0 shellacking based on 1 Mon and 1 Mon alone. Its armorer standing there looking down on the now-fallen win streak of the Noctowls. Everything in the Noctowls' favor early. Armorers with 2 Calm Minds and 2 turns, but Dragon-tailed out. Nasty. Enamerson, Agility up, but Ursaluna in. It tanks Moonblast and KOs back with Facade. Easy. Houndstone tanks Gapto as well, but a neat taunt to Sabbath's Will. That's nice. Glow King in to try and get damage off, but misses Focus Blast on the Hudra. After Future Sight, it finally gets it down to half, but Donphan goes down to some Dracos. Yeesh. Steve with the slick double back into Armorage, and Calm Minds up on Cinderace coming in. Endure to activate Weak Armor, then the double Endure to survive First Impression and KO the incoming Houndstone. Endure on Surf. That's a weakness policy, my friend, and at +2, +3, +4, stored power will even KO Terra Psychic Vaporeon. And that's actually game. Endure every other turn on low kicks, then KO with stored power or armor cannon. Too much speed and no sucker punch in sight from a Cinderace or low kicks. That's a huge win for a Wobbuffets team searching for a big W against a relevant team. Well, that'll do more than that. What a statement. Next match, the Incineroar have been clawing and scratching their way up the rankings. Their latest 2-0 victory over the Mudkips finally getting them back over 500 for the first time this season. A few shocking twists and turns, some neat moveset choices, and yet some of the same old. If that's cryptic to you, don't worry. Michael has all this covered on the Match of the Week right here on this channel. Go check this one out. Next match. Well, we don't have to talk about this one, so let's move on to... I'm sorry, what? Okay. Well, I'm being told I have to under threat of... Well, I'll just admit to it, the Bouffalant lost big here to the Calgary Corviknight 4-0. Does the bunching up start now? Nasty plot Fortress, and that's obvious. Overheat reveals the disguises. We have 2 dedicated Sash leads, but Revroom got up T-Spikes, and Scarf Regidrago is a menace. Early Terra Steel Hippo to stay alive for now from Dragon Energy. Whirlwind out the Thunderous, Nasty plotting itself, and Hippo is healthy but poisoned. Back into Regidrago Earth Power. Yeah, that's unresisted on this team. T-Spikes up, but Sizzler has Defog and Tailwind's up. Sandy Shocks can't quite finish off Sizzler and goes down to Drago. Tailwind is now gone, so Harknine can come in and miss Head Smash. Well, Scarf Harknine was the only shot there, goes down, and that's game. Regidrago paralyzed by Fortress, but it takes that down. Terra Poison to dodge being KO'd by Hisui and Sneasel, then finally paralyzed to at least go down. Hippo makes it a little interesting, but does just go down to Valiant. A pretty casual 4-0 of an historically great team. No big deal. Another big win for a team looking to crack into the top again. It's the Burbs back on track after another W. This one their third, coming this time against the Wooper Troopers. Muck getting rid of Taurus's leftovers turn 1 feels big, especially as it bulks up on Torkoal, who sets rocks on Uxie. Muck back in as Uxie brings the rain, checks out. Taurus taking more chip with the super effective Raging Bull on Torkoal. 21%? Jeez. Grimmsnarl takes half and gets up light screen, but Muck breaks the screen on Quark. Defogs away rocks, but Fire Punch in the Sun. It does 66% to the Steel Bird. That's insane. Tauros in again, and +1 CC does 51%. Lava Plume 45 back, both extremely low as Sun fades. Walking Wake is in 96% with CC. Shout out to the Tauroses, but it will go down to the Hydro Steam. The Snarl in for more screens, but this time it's Meloetta breaking them, and Uxie gets up rocks again, but Muck back in to knock out the sacked Corviknight. Thunderous Therian is the second straight nasty plotting Thunderous. Is that the breakthrough? Knockoff. Crit. Dead Thundy. Wow, what power from the Muck! Noivern is into click buttons. Torkoal sacked Electrode in, and it'll KO the Grimmsnarl that was low. Muck in on Noivern. Tank's Boomburst knocks off that, and Uxie. Gungshot takes care of Uxie, who Terra Fairied, and then it'll finish off Noivern. What a crazy match for Muck. 4 KOs and plenty more damage. A 5-0 win for the 3-2 Burbs. Next up, the Agrons continuing their ascent, and the Steamlords keep tumbling. A 5-0 win for the Agrons, bring them up to 4-1. Early, though, Steam Eruption from Volcanion is strong. 2 KOing Meowscarada, who at least gets up T-Spikes, but Pelipper powering that up doesn't help. Gengar in, Sludge Bombs Rotom, who gets poisoned and brought to 2. Then Gardecuno in on Volcanion. Calm Minds a couple times, tank the Steam Eruptions, then Rotom sacked on. Recover. Oh no. Let loose the Master Plan. Substitute on Clodsire, who could no longer touch Gardecuno. With another Calm Mind, it's time for our weekly tradition. Enamorous breaks the sub, but takes 84 from Terra Blast, and another finishes it off. Volcanion in Taunt after the sub goes up, and now for Terra Ground Terra Blast to Oko. KOs Volcanion, Clodsire after a couple turns, Cyclizar, and Toadscroll for 5 KOs, and a sweep for the Agrons, stacking up some nice wins here. Next up, another easy match, but this was another telling match we were looking forward to. Unfortunately for the Bulldors, it's the Clobberers who showed us what's what with a strong 4-0 win. Early rocks for Azelf, then a sunny day is interesting, but Rocky Helmet takes down the Azelf while getting up spikes. Great Tusk removes spikes instead of Garchomp, and is Dragon-tailed out for its troubles. Only for Garchomp to set up the first layer again as Rotom Rain Dances, Dual Weathers. Okay. Garchomp gets up rocks 2 before going down. Amoonguss gets paralyzed, but puts Rotom to sleep, who waits it out while getting hit by 2 Giga Drains before waking up and getting out of there into Kilowattrel. Hurricane smacks Cleavor, but that's a Scarf, so down goes Kilowattrel. Great Tusk into spin, but gets burned by Flame Body, so it's doing nothing to Talonflame. It takes the chance to clear away its rocks too. That burn will finish off Tusk. Amoonguss tanks Articuno Spore after. Rain Dance is reset and puts it to sleep. Articuno survives Stone Axe Tank thanks to Terra Water, but at what cost? Terra Blast does finish off Cleavor, but Palafin is in next. Wave Crash finishes up the game there. Even King Gambit is afraid to go for Sucker Punch and goes down to a single rain-boosted Wave Crash. A great win for the Clobberers, who continue to impress. And finally, at the time of recording, the Kinglers have had to delay their match thanks to sickness, so the Electabuzz and Kinglers will not be covered at this time. But that is what happened in Week 5. Lot of big wins, big losses, and some big movement here as, oh boy, do we have a shakeup at the top. The Noctowls finally going down. It only took facing 3 top teams in a row for something to finally happen there. And yet, look who's on top now. We decided on the Calgary Corviknight to make their #1 debut here. First time we haven't had the Noctowls. First time Corviknight have even sniffed #1, I believe. But the Noctowls will follow them up at 2, the Wobbuffets at 3, Bouffalant's still hanging in there at 4, we know we're going to talk about that, the Agrons at 5, and Clobbers at 6 with better records, the Burbs down at 7, and look who's back, it's the Cincinnati Incineroar, who do make it on our list here at number 8. Plenty to talk about, Steve, but I think first and foremost, we should talk about the top teams, just mixing it up yet again. It really feels like there was a separation, but now I'm just not quite as sure. Yes, the top teams are really only losing to each other still, but it feels like 1 through 8 as a whole have improved quite a bit. And maybe nothing's going to tell that more than the Corviknight being the ones to actually emerge from this, not totally unscathed, but out at #1 with a nice win over the Bouffalant and very impressive record against some other teams. I think we need to start by praising the Corviknight. What do you think?
Yeah, the Corviknight are definitely doing fantastic. They, of course, got some help this week with the Wobbuffets taking down the Noctowls, kind of opening up this discussion of a different #1 team. And after we took a look at it, the Corviknights seem to make the most sense as the #1 team, having played a close game with the Noctowls, a win over the Bouffalant, a win over the Agrons, a win over the Clobbers. They've played most of the other 4-1 teams and other top teams on this list and have come out mostly with wins. Another key factor in us ranking them 1 right now is their remaining schedule. They've had a tough schedule, as mentioned, with all these teams that are listed that they've played, but the rest of the season looks much easier, going up against teams like the Kinglers, the Wooper Troopers, and the Music City Mudkips. All 3 of those teams aren't having the best of seasons and should kind of be a chance for the Calgary Corviknights to kind of fine-tune their team and probably make it fairly easily into the playoffs, 7-1. They currently have the highest differential with the easiest schedule remaining, probably keeping that differential very high and likely snagging the 1 seed when all is said and done.
And we mentioned that their only loss coming to the Noctowls, who are right below them, but that was very close, and I guess we should talk about it a little bit. Yes, the Noctowls are still at #2, even after beating the Wobbuffets, who are right below them at 3. But man, has it been so interesting to see the trajectory here of the Noctowls. Yes, undefeated for seemingly forever until just now. But take a look at their last 3 matches. A couple 50-50s away from dropping to the Bouffalant, beating the Corviknight by 1 turn, which, by the way, they did get by a 1-turn wake-up from Ursaluna, and then a smattering by 1 particular set that they were unprepared for from the Wobbuffets. It wouldn't be too, I think, unheard of to think of them being 2-3, which seems just absurd, but just a couple of turns away from that. Yet despite that, of course, continue to rack up wins, aside from the one this week and this one, and as we said, just 1 Mon. But Steve, you have to feel good about this. As I mentioned before, it's been a while, it feels like, since the Wobbuffets got a staple signature win quite like this one. So I'll let you praise yourself a little bit and why the Noctowls at 2 are maybe in a little bit of danger.
Yeah, I certainly agree. It felt like it's been a while since one of these key wins, so good to kind of keep myself in contention for the top here. But yeah, the Noctowls, they've came in very historically strong team, kind of the hottest team in the league, and did fantastic up to this point. Admittedly, they were definitely had the upper hand in this week's match against myself. and it came down to the 33% chance to get the second Endure off, and at that point they no longer had an answer. But once again, kind of that key RNG moment where if it goes the other more common way, the Noctowls likely take the rest of the match very easily. So it could be a very different conversation with a little bit of different RNG. Based on that, we decided to keep them at 2. The rest of their schedule is also a little easy. They have some key matches, especially this week, upcoming week against the Incineroar, and then the end of the season against the Burbs, the 7 and 8 on this list. But they've also have got through, the majority of their very hard schedule in a very good position. They're still a great team, and it's still very close, especially with all in all with the Corviknight, Noctowls, and Wobbuffets especially. Still very close. Any of these 3 teams could very easily move up and down to each other, and maybe down, even down as far as 6, depending on how this next week, 1 week could do it, moving any of these teams down that far, now that they've all proven themselves to be mortal.
Yeah, I think we did start off by saying the 1 through 3 in our discussion that the 1 through 3 are pretty darn close to each other. Before it was 1 through 4, but I think Bouffalant probably dropped down, and yet the 4, 5, 6, who are next grouping, do still feel relatively close to the 1, 2, 3, depending on some things that happen. Because don't forget, Agrons and Clobbers are 4 and 1, which, by the way, ties them for the best record in the league now that there are no undefeated teams. So we have our 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 teams all at 4 and 1, with the Bouffalant kind of in there a little bit too. Actually, number 7 overall, thanks to differential there at 3 and 2. You could write it off to just a bad week against the Corviknight. I'm going to kind of chalk it up to the Corviknight being very well prepared. Another reason for them to be at number 1 potentially here too. But I think we talked about 2, 5, and 6 are very close to each other. It would be tough to say that the Bouffalant would sandwich in between them. So why, this was mostly you leading our discussion on this, but why did we end up putting the Bouffalant ahead of the Agrons Clobbers, who have been doing just about nothing but winning? They've all lost to the Corviknight. What is the difference to you?
So a key thing is, one, historic precedence. The Bouffalant being, the perennial number 1 team. Kind of hard to move them down without sufficient reason. And the losses, you mentioned, all these teams have lost to the Calgary Corviknight. But the other loss for the Bouffalant was to the Noctowls, which, as we talked about, was a close game that a couple 50-50s could have made that a win. Meanwhile, the Agrons and Clobbers, outside of their loss to Calgary, are doing very good, but they haven't played any of the teams above them besides Calgary on this list. They both have a win over the Incineroar. They both have a win over teams like the Burbs and the Bulldors, but mostly they've been playing teams that are missing the power rankings. So once again, it comes down to, and I feel like I keep saying this, getting that win against a team above them to kind of put them into a position where we have to weigh the pros and cons of, okay, where are they actually fitting in? Right now, there's a kind of a very clear drop-off where they don't have any marquee wins, but they don't have any bad losses. And that's another big thing with the Bouffalant, is they do have that marquee win against the Wobbuffets this season. That win is against a team that is ranked above them and is kind of keeping the Bouffalant above, in my mind at least, the Agrons and Clobbers. Now, we will see when we get to the schedule, there's a chance for both of these teams this week playing teams ranked above them. And that could easily allow these teams, like I said, this 1 through 6 to kind of shuffle around a little bit, depending on the outcome of those matches.
I feel like just a couple weeks ago, even if the 5 or 6 had won a match, it really would not have shaken anything up. But I think we are actually now at a point where if something, there's 1 or 2 matches that can happen to bring one of those couple teams up much higher, which is a lot of fun. And of course, we can't discount the Burbs and Incineroar, who I think for the first time too, we may have a little bit of separation between 8 and 9 as well. The Burbs and Incineroar are really coming out strong these past couple weeks. Incineroar on a 3-game winning streak in particular there too, and just continue to rack up some nice wins here. So give some praise to the Burbs and Incineroar,
yeah. Yeah, they're both doing great, both getting big wins here. Burbs with that big 5-0, very dominant win. They keep doing well. They have losses to the teams ranked above them in the power rankings, the Agrons, and they also played the Wobbuffets, and otherwise have been playing easier teams. So it'll be exciting to see when they play additional teams that are ranked above them currently. They do, in the rest of the season, still need to play the Corviknight Clobbers and the Newport Noctowls. So those will be fun matches to keep your eye out for. And the same with the Incineroar. You mentioned they had early losses to teams that are doing very well this season, and the Corviknight Clobbers and the Akron Agrons. But after that, they've been winning. They, again, same thing as the Birds, have been playing teams that are missing the power rankings right now. And they will also have opportunities to play these better teams and, put themselves into contention. This week coming up, they have a match against the Newport Noctowls. A very big match. The Noctowls, definitely favored there. But the Incineroar have won this matchup before. And all it takes is something like that to really shake the confidence even further in the Noctowls and really raise the Incineroar stock.
If you're a fan of chaos within the power rankings, this was a pretty good week for you. The Bouffalant losing to the Corviknight and the Noctowls finally dropping, and some big wins from teams below them. This feels closer than ever before, 1 through 8. There is still possibly a chance for some teams outside there. That's going to do it for power rankings. We've alluded to the schedule quite a bit because this week is important. Not only are there only 3 weeks left, but there are some real nice matches on here. You already mentioned the Incineroar and Noctowls. Before I'll let you take a couple of the easier matches here too, but I guess I'll also tack on another fun one. A couple teams outside the rankings right now, the Steamrollers and Bulldors, not featured on the power rankings, and that's a little surprising for both, I think, considering how well, say, the Bulldors played against some of their tougher competition until this past week where they got kind of stomped. And the Steamrollers, historically, very good team, just have not put it together. Frankly, I think this is the last chance for us to take either of them seriously here for the power rankings. A win here isn't necessarily signature, but it is a nice step in that direction. And losing this one, I'm sorry to say, it's real tough for me to have any confidence that you'll be able to come back and even make the playoffs at this point. We're starting to get into a point where Steve's sending me playoff odds too, so big shout out to that. We're getting pretty close here too. Your last shot for you two to impress me. But of course, Steve, our matches are once again pretty nice, aren't they?
Yep. Easy matches to highlight here. The Bouffalant and Agrons and the Wobbuffets and Clobbers. These are the 3, 4, 5, and 6 in our playoff rankings, playing as they would if this was the playoffs with the seeding based on the power rankings. We were talking about how the Agrons and the Clobbers are both just a marquee win away from really serious discussion about getting up there, and they both are getting the opportunity. This is also a really good chance, especially for the Bouffalant, who you've mentioned, have that one win over the Wobbuffets, but losses against other top teams, and have, outside of that, just played teams who are missing the power rankings. So a really good chance for them to reestablish themselves as a dominant team in the league and make sure they don't drop any further than they already have. And of course, after a big upset for the Wobbuffets, taking out the Noctowls this past week, let's see if they can keep that momentum going against the Clobbers.
And that's going to do it for Week 5 Power Rankings and the Week 6 schedule look ahead. Thanks to Steve for joining me as always, and thanks to all of you for watching as always too. We're starting to get to a close in the season, and things are just getting more and more interesting here, aren't they? So maybe teams with hot starts can keep it up. We'll see, but that'll do it for us. We will see you next time.